You're watching Our Time, and the main news at this hour will be brought to you by me, Natalia Osipets. Hello. Ukrainian forces have struck Russian military strategic targets. The goal is to weaken the offensive military and economic potential of the aggressor country, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. A repeated strike on the oil terminal in temporarily occupied Feodosia has been confirmed. On the night of October 13th, 16 fuel tanks were damaged. A large fire is still ongoing. In addition, on the night of October 14th, a radar station in Krasnaya Polyana was destroyed. A strike was also carried out on a drone control center in Oleshki, Kherson region. An ammunition depot was hit in the area of Makiivka, Donetsk region. And the Ukrainian army continues to fight for the liberation of the occupied territories, according to the General Staff. A 19-year-old man was injured last night in the Dnipropetrovsk region. As a result of Russian shelling, an FPV drone hit a residential building in one of the settlements. Fires also broke out in Pavlograd, Kamiansk, and the Slavgorod community after the strikes. Rescuers quickly extinguished the fires. Energy, transport, and industrial facilities were damaged. The fire was quickly put out by rescuers. Energy, transport, and industrial facilities were damaged. Also under enemy fire was Chernihiv. There, a drone crashed into a civilian infrastructure facility, and in the Novgorod-Siversky district, a drone struck a residential building. And, according to preliminary reports, there were no casualties. The day before, the Russians attacked Sloviansk with drones. 2 hits on a school were recorded. This was reported by the head of the city military administration, Vadim Layak. According to him, nearby private houses were damaged. There were no injuries. Defense ministers of NATO countries are arriving in Brussels. A meeting in the Ramstein format will be held there. The alliance and the EU are working together to create a drone wall to protect Europe. This was stated by the Secretary General of the alliance, Mark Rutte, before the start of the meeting. He also addressed Russia and stated that NATO has all the means necessary to defend the alliance's territory. NATO is actively implementing the latest technologies. Ukraine is learning how to counter enemy objectives. Today, the defense minister will also discuss strengthening the alliance's deterrence and defense capabilities, as well as further support for Ukraine. Ukraine's partners are increasing their contributions to the Pearl program. New contributions are expected to arrive in the near future. This was stated by the head of Ukraine's mission to NATO, Alyona Hetmanchuk. The program provides for the purchase of American weapons by NATO countries and partners, with subsequent transfer to Ukraine. 7 countries are preparing to announce their contributions. According to Hetmanchuk, Ukraine is actively pursuing negotiations not only with the member states of NATO, but also with its alliance partners who are also able to join in funding this important initiative.
There is an expectation that at least 7 countries will announce their contributions. These are the states that have already signaled their readiness to support Pearl. We are also working to get some countries to increase their contributions and hope there will be pleasant surprises when those who previously hadn't announced intentions to support the program join in. Alyona Hetmanchuk, head of Ukraine's mission to NATO.
The Ukrainian delegation in the U.S. met with leading American defense companies. The delegation includes NSDC Secretary Rustem Umerov, head of the Office of the President of Ukraine Andriy Yermak, and Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko. They went to the U.S. to coordinate positions and work out key areas of cooperation, from expanding technological partnerships to the possible creation of joint ventures between defense industries. Ahead of the Ukrainian president's visit to Washington.
The main focus is on the tasks set by President Volodymyr Zelensky: strengthening air defense and strike capabilities, boosting energy resilience ahead of the winter season, new sanctions against the aggressor state. The goal is shared and unchanged: a just peace for Ukraine through stronger defense, partnerships, and pressure on Russia. Rustem Umerov, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, on Telegram.
U.S. President Donald Trump once again criticized the Russian dictator. He said that Putin simply does not want to end the war in Ukraine, and he doesn't understand why. I
am very disappointed. because Vladimir and I had a very good relationship and probably still do to this day. I don't understand why he continues this war. This war has brought him so much trouble. Soon it will enter its 4th year. He has lost 1.5 million soldiers. Of course, that's not even counting the wounded, those who have lost their arms and legs, and everything else that happens in terrible wars. This is a terrible war.
Europe should prepare for a possible strike that Russia might launch deep into the continent. This was stated by Poland's foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski. He noted that strengthening Ukraine's defense, including through additional weapons, air defense systems, and short and medium-range weapons, is critically important for the security of Europe itself. He recalled incidents of violations of NATO countries' airspace, drone flights over Poland, and Russian fighter jets near Estonia's borders. I would also add that during his speech in the British Parliament, he displayed an Iranian drone, a Shahed drone shot down in Ukraine, and he emphasized the need for continued support for Kiev. The minister expressed hope that the United States would provide Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles. The United Kingdom has sent Ukraine more than 85,000 military drones over the past 6 months. According to the British government, such a volume of deliveries became possible thanks to accelerated production. Defense Minister John Healey also announced a new investment. This year, the United Kingdom allocated £600 million for drones for Ukraine. We're talking about tens of thousands of FPV drones. The Ukrainian Armed Forces use these UAVs for precision strikes, reconnaissance, and to disrupt Russia's plans. China has increased its exports of cables and batteries for drones to Russia. This is evidenced by Chinese customs data analyzed by journalists from the Washington Post. Chinese manufacturers have played a key role in helping Russian military-industrial enterprises expand drone production and are now helping to develop components specifically designed for combat use. This is stated in the investigation. Andrei Matrenko will tell you more in detail.
China is ramping up its supply of drone parts to Russia, writes the Washington Post. According to the Chinese Customs Administration, there has been a tenfold increase in the export volume of certain components from July to August 2025. Chinese commercial drone manufacturers played a key role in this, accounting for 80% of the global market in this segment. It is thanks to them that Russia was able to ramp up production of drones equipped with fiber optic systems.
China's ability to produce large quantities of components at low prices, as well as to quickly develop new prototypes and technologies, gives Russia certain advantages. This has serious consequences on the battlefield, as lighter and longer cables have allowed Russia to expand the range of its attacks on territory controlled by Ukraine, according to a publication by the Washington Post.
The Russian army is increasingly using fiber optic drones, as they are less vulnerable to electronic warfare measures, experts explain. According to an investigation conducted by Bloomberg in July 2025, a number of Chinese companies are directly cooperating with Russian military enterprises.
This shouldn't be seen as something like what happened at the beginning of the war, when things were just being smuggled in. Just in suitcases, in duffel bags, and delivered to Russia. No, this is a centralized supply. It's a network, if you will, a supply network that's organized and operates continuously, like an octopus stretching its tentacles from different parts of the world. These supplies are being delivered to Russian territory.
Ukraine's partners are systematically imposing restrictions on companies that cooperate with the Russian military-industrial complex. But to achieve a tangible effect, the sanctions lists need to be expanded on a large scale. The main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine has published information about military enterprises of the aggressor country that have not yet come under sanctions.
Ukraine's GERMO is publishing data on the War and Sanctions portal about 145 enterprises that are part of or managed by the Technodynamica holding of the Russian state corporation Rostec. Despite the strategic importance of the holding for the Russian military-industrial complex, 86 out of 145 enterprises remain outside the sanctions imposed by the coalition countries. Among them are manufacturers of key components for Russian missile systems and armored vehicles. From a publication by the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine on Facebook.
As long as Russia is able to spend enormous sums to continue its war against Ukraine, it will keep looking for ways to supply its military-industrial complex. Partners of Kiev are convinced that the problem can only be comprehensively solved by depriving Russia of the ability to finance its aggression. the EU continues to discuss the 19th package of sanctions against Moscow. In Brussels, they hope to reach a consensus before the European Council meeting scheduled for October 23rd, according to EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas.
We are working on the 19th package of sanctions to put more pressure on Russia in order to end this war. The Russian economy is already weakened, and we are undermining it even further with our sanctions so that the Kremlin will finally stop financing this war. We have 27 countries, 27 different democracies, and that's why the discussions are ongoing.
On September 19th, the European Commission approved a list of proposals that will form the basis of the new sanctions package. Among them, a complete ban on the supply of Russian liquefied natural gas to the EU until January 2027, an expanded sanctions list for Russia's shadow fleet, a ban on operations by Russian banks and financial institutions, including those operating in third countries, as well as measures against foreign companies cooperating with the Russian military-industrial complex. Andrei Dmitrenko for Frida TV channel.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.